Hi, and welcome to City Desk, a behind-the-scenes look at Santa Barbara's top local news stories. I'm your host, Jerry Roberts, joined by an all-star lineup of local journalists for an inside look at these headlines. The final frantic days of an historic city council race. How will district elections change City Hall? Yet another key feminist group endorses Salud for Congress. What do women want from Helene? A shocking death in IV, and eyewitnesses allege racism shaped the county's emergency response. And what skyrocketing retail rents mean for State Street business. Joining me to explore these issues from high atop the luxurious South Salinas Street headquarters of TV Santa Barbara, Ray Estrada from the South Coast Biz Blog, Emile Nelson, editor-in-chief of the Daily Nexus, Kelsey Brugger, staff writer for the Santa Barbara Independent, and Josh Molina, who covers politics for NewsHawk. Thank you all for coming. Josh, you have a piece just posted on NewsHawk that reports of voter turnout, early reports of voter turnout. Looks like all the hyper-local politicking has not generated much interest. What do the numbers look like?
Well, we're not seeing a huge turnout so far. As of today, we're seeing about 20% of the ballots of registered voters have been returned. So we have these off-year elections, so we always know that voter turnout traditionally is going to be low. There's a lot of variables because this is district elections and we don't know what's going to happen here in terms of, are we going to see more voter turnout, less? Right now it's actually on par with the amount of ballots.
The same lousy voter turnout.
Yeah, Santa Barbara usually gets 38, 39, maybe 40% turnout during the off-year elections, so we may be approaching that now. But what's exciting about that is that these races are going to be really close. We're really probably not going to know. It's going to come down to a couple hundred votes maybe. We may have to wait several days.
So even though the whole thing is vote by mail, not all of the ballots will be counted on election.
Yeah, there's a new law where ballots that are postmarked by election day have to be counted. So the city's not going to actually finalize the vote until the following Monday. So if it's close, and it probably will be, I mean, we're talking about 907 people who have, as of a few days before the election, have turned in ballots for District 3, which is the west side.
And that's the big hot race.
Yeah, that's where we have incumbent Kathy Murillo against Sharon Byrne and Cristina Cardoso, and that's going to be a close race.
We should note that we're recording this a couple days before the election, so if you're watching us and it's before November 3rd, hit pause and go fill out your ballot and then come back. Now, if it's after, don't worry, we'll be back with a special post-election wrap-up and analysis show on November 5th. We're jumping over. Sorry, that was the League of Women Voters asked me that.
Great.
Not really. So, what are the other numbers looking like?
Well, surprisingly, you'd think we'd have a lot of voter turnout because that's a real competitive race.
That was one of the notions, wasn't it?
Yeah. We actually have the most voter turnout so far. We're about 2,100 people have returned ballots on the Mesa, right, which is where we have a higher number of registered voters. We have about 9,000 registered voters on the Mesa. About 2,100 have returned ballots. So some things change, some things stay the same. A larger voter turnout on the Mesa. So ironically, that's the case. That's the contest that's the least competitive. We have incumbent Randy Rouse, who's raised something like $25,000, $30,000 for his campaign, and he's going up against two candidates who have raised very little money. One of them's not raising money at all, and the other one, Luis Esparza, has raised some money.
Do you get to vote this time, Ray?
East side. So
you're in District 2? 3? What
East side is District 1.
District 1. I was going to say that next.
Yeah, no, I talked to Jason Dominguez, and I don't know the two ladies who are running very well, but I know Crucito, and I don't know who's going to win that one, but I think Jacqueline Ida has more signs out. Jason's running second, and I don't know.
He has the most money.
Apparently so, and he got the endorsement from the Chamber of Commerce.
She has the what's the woman has the
yeah. So Andrea Martinez Cohen is endorsed by the Democratic Party, and she has support from labor groups. So she's the most traditionally sort of Democratic slate-backed candidate. She's sort of like how Kathy Murillo was a couple of years ago. And so this race is really shaping up to be Cohen, who's backed by Labor, backed by Democrats, against Dominguez, who is got some more moderate support. He has more businesses on the east side who are backing him, and it's going to be kind of close. Dominguez has a little more money, but as I keep going back to, don't underestimate the power of the Democrats to organize. They have great field operations. They have people who are knocking on doors up until 8 o'clock on election night, and that matters, right?
Sure.
Especially in this kind of race when it's coming down to, we're going to have a couple hundred votes, if
you
anything.
voted yet?
I can't. I'm downtown. I'm not in the voting district.
Is it making you angry that you've lost your franchise on this?
But I don't want to discount also Jacqueline Inda, who also is, she's sort of in the middle, right? She's not backed by a whole lot of the business.
She has a lot of signs. I mean,
The signs make a big difference. That's her. He has name recognition.
I think she's backed by a lot of the sort of the working class, grassroots people in that community. She grew up on the east side. She's one of them, and she's somebody who represents them well, whereas the other two on the extremes are more of traditionally sort of being backed by the parties and controlling that. So we don't know who's going to win. That's up in the air. I think Cohen has the advantage right now just because she's got more organization behind her.
All right, so let me get this straight. So I have moved heaven and earth so we can change our production schedule, so we can be on 2 days after the election and analyze this. And you're telling me we're not going to know who won? Is that pretty much what you're saying,
well,
Josh?
I think that's a possibility, yes.
I can almost guarantee you it's going to happen.
So what difference will
we
it
could
make?
talk about who's leading. Yes.
Right.
Let's pretend we don't
you'll
know who's going to win or
know.
lose. What difference is it going to make at City Hall?
Well, potentially, if Sharon Byrne were to upset Kathy Murillo, who's the incumbent. Incumbents are always the favorite ones unless they've done anything totally outrageously bad, which is not the case here. That would be a big swing, big shift in politics. Sharon Byrne comes in with a huge amount of business backing. She's got a different approach to how to handle city policy. And Kathy is traditionally just, she supports $15 minimum wage, for example, for city employees. So Sharon Byrne does not. So that's going to be a big difference in policy there. On the east side, we're losing.
Jason, that would be a big deal. I mean, that would be a big swing too.
Jason's a lawyer, and he's very logical, organized guy. I think he'd be very independent.
And the chamber likes him. So.
Chamber loves him because he's not the other two candidates. I didn't like the other two candidates.
Yeah, so that's one thing. And then on the east side, we're losing Dale Francisco, who's termed out, who has been...
Who's not running for Congress, by the way.
That's right.
And so whoever we get there to replace Dale, that's going to be a significant policy shift. So, yeah, there's a lot of variables. It's all very interesting.
Right. Well, we'll all be back
a
couple of days after election. And I wrote down what you said.
Are you still predicting Sharon Byrne? That's a question for you.
Moving on. Kelsey, the Democratic Women of Santa Barbara, the organization, not the demographic class, narrowly endorsed Supervisor Salud Carbajal over Mayor Helene Schneider in the wide open race for the congressional seat now held by Lois Capps. Now, on the natural, it would seem a no-brainer that they would endorse Schneider with her long record on feminist issues. And the move, you tell me, has caused some tensions in the group.
It has.
Sort it out for us.
So the vote or the decision reportedly came down to one vote, one person. It's an 18-member board of people voting.
How big is this group?
So this group is the biggest in the Democratic Party of Santa Barbara County. So the number of members, I think, is about 500. I'm not sure exactly. I think it fluctuates. But this is, this is a big group. 18 people are members and are voting. And what's interesting is, we don't really have an idea if this board is representative of the membership. It's not like the membership has been polled or anything like that. But so their process, as I understand it, is the candidates fill out a questionnaire. They come in, they do an interview, they answer the same questions, and then there's some discussion and then a secret ballot vote. So the piece that people there seems to be tension is about the discussion. It sounds like it was brief, went around and said positives and some negatives about each candidate. Were
the candidates in the room at that point?
No.
Okay.
Not as I understand it. 4 of them reportedly were voting by proxy. one person called in and gave a prepared statement, apparently disparaging one of the candidates and supporting one of the others.
Which one?
Speaking highly of Salud Carbajal and...
Somebody called in and spoke highly of Salud?
Yes.
Are we sure it wasn't Salud?
I don't think so. I don't think so. So, so yeah, it was tense. I mean, I don't know if this is, you know, if this decision or this endorsement is going to change. I'd imagine it's not. You know, but you know, he did win the endorsement. 60% of that board voted for him. So, I mean, it's a big deal. Like you said, she is a woman. She has worked for Planned Parenthood for more than a decade. She sticks up for women's rights. You know, it does seem kind of like a no-brainer.
And the seat has been held by a woman for.
The seat has been held by a woman who endorsed Salud. So I think, you know, the feeling among people on that board, as it was explained to me, was that people, there's a sense that Salud is going to win in the primary election. He has raised double the amount of money. He has secured endorsements of many high-profile people nationally, statewide, and locally. And so they saw that as important, and you know, they wanted to back someone who's viable.
I mean, it's interesting because from day one, 12 seconds after Lois said she wasn't running and Helene came out and said she was, I mean, that's Helene. I'm the only woman in the race. I'm the only woman, and that was what she saw as her strength. But it really hasn't played out to that. I mean, she certainly has gotten some importance.
She's gotten some this week. She announced that Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom had endorsed her, which is significant because he was a champion for gay rights before a lot of mainstream politicians.
But is he going to do any fundraising for her, or is that just a name?
That I don't know. I don't know. I mean, who knows? I mean, the other piece is Emile's list. I think it's surprising to a lot of people that they haven't come in. I mean, that's, you know, again, she worked for Planned Parenthood for 12 years, and their, you know, sole criteria is pro-choice Democratic women. So when you say that, it's like, well, why wouldn't you endorse Helene? And they say they're still watching. So,
hey, Emile, is there any visibility for this campaign in IV or on campus or anything, or do you see any evidence that anybody's trying to organize out there?
Well, I think most of the evidence you see comes from the people who are already politically minded and interested. For the most part, I don't think most of my peers at UCSB are very interested. Unfortunately, I just don't think that people are paying attention. The people who are, like I said, are the ones who always pay attention. So the visibility, to best of my knowledge, hasn't been great so far. I think the biggest thing that people did know was that Helene was running for the seat and that Capps was retiring. Other than that, the status of the endorsement and the fundraising really hasn't made a large impact so far.
I mean, they'll be focused on it next year.
Exactly. I think as it gets closer, it's going to be
have a presidential race. Why did Hannah Beth Jackson go with Helene? Because she's the only sort of prominent.
She's a big endorsement for Helene. I think she likes the fact that Helene's a woman. I think she thinks she will stick up for women's rights, perhaps more than a man. You know, especially when Planned Parenthood is you know, such a big issue nationally. She, you know, when talking about other topics like child care and just women's rights, she sees it as significant to back a woman, and Helene. I think she, you know, I mean, Helene is a viable candidate in a lot of people's eyes in the Democratic Party. I think so.
You've been spending a lot of quality time with Justin Freed, I hear. What does it look like on the Republican side now, you think?
Well, I think Fareed is surprising people with the amount of money that he is raising, and he's making an impact in terms of self-branding. People are becoming more aware of him. I think that Assemblyman Cacho is still the front runner as far as Republicans go because he has a longer record of experience as a supervisor and then assembly member. I think the thinking is that he's just going to get more support, San Luis Obispo, North Santa Barbara County, and you know, it's great that Justin is a football player. He's got a lot of support in that area, but Cacho's got a longer record. So I think that's even though Cacho doesn't have a lot of money right now, you know, there's different games going on. The money is really important in terms of trying to clear the field to say, hey, I'm viable. Okay, Cacho doesn't need that right now. Okay, he's going to need it if he's one of the top two, and then he's going to turn it on. So there's a difference there. Most people think it'll be Cacho and Salud as, you know, 1 and 2, or, you know, the other way around. But those two will be there in the primary.
But if you look at the Republican presidential race, I mean, the whole thing this year is they don't want politics. They don't want experience. Well, now stop laughing.
Right.
So
yeah,
I mean,
so
do you agree with that analysis, or do you think Justin
I do.
has a better chance?
I think that people in the Republican Party have been surprised at how well Justin how much money he's been able to raise. I mean, I think that at events he's kind of walking around and he's working the room.
Does he have the football in his hand?
You know, I don't know. That's a good question. But so I don't know. I think that people are more surprised than they thought they were going to be. I think, you know, yes, Cacho is the establishment favorite. I think Cacho's been saying, oh, I've been working up in the assembly and I haven't been able to raise money. I don't think that line is going to last that much longer.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've only got 103 more days till election, so
All right.
I can't wait to talk about this some more. Emile, this is a terrible story out there. Tragic, bizarre death of a UCSB student, Andy Sanchez, and it's ignited a whole controversy on campus about how authorities handled the incident. Tell us the basic facts of the case.
So the basic idea is this student, second-year student, Andy Sanchez, was found acting erratically, according to the witnesses, running around on, I believe it was Abrego, early Sunday morning. And some of the witnesses called the police. And when the police showed up, they found that Sanchez had a very deep laceration on his arm. And basically, when the medical team arrived, they took him to the hospital, and unfortunately, he passed away from blood loss. There's been a lot of speculation as to, you know, why he was acting the way he was. The students who found him said that he wasn't being violent. He was just being, you know, sort of excited, which they attributed to the adrenaline, whereas the fire department and the police department seemed to lean towards more that he was acting very excitedly, and the fire department, I believe, quoted to say, like, violently towards responders and towards people. There have been some
so he was like running around, walking around, and then an hour or two later he's dead from blood loss.
So what they think happened is, it seems like the story goes, he's at his house or one of the houses, and his arm ended up through a window, and the glass severed.
His arm ended up through a window.
I don't know exactly how. I heard he punched it through the window. I'm not sure why. I've heard he punched it through the window, or that he, you know, tripped into it, that he was trying to get into his house. Something. There's just a bunch of different stories going around, and I wasn't there, so I'm not sure which is which.
But does a sheriff's report say what?
The initial thing we heard from the sheriff was that he had punched through a window at, I believe it was his or a friend's house, and the sheriffs also say that his roommate and some friends think that he might have been under the influence of some controlled substances.
So that hasn't been confirmed?
That hasn't been confirmed. We have not seen any autopsy. We don't have anything certain on that, so that's purely from what we've heard from people who were around the situation. So that could be completely off base, but that's just one of the ideas.
And then these Good Samaritan students, somehow he goes to their place, or they find him in the street.
Yeah, so he ends up outside their door, basically screaming for help, running around the street, losing blood just extremely quickly from his arm. They said it was like flying out, not just dripping out. It was just absolutely brutal. And they find him in the street, they help him, try to calm him down while they call police. And here's where the allegations come in. These students, 5 students, came to Senate on that Wednesday, so the Wednesday following Sanchez's death.
And to Senate is the Associated Students.
Associated Students. We have a Senate meeting every week, and they essentially said that they believe that Sanchez's death was linked to misconduct by the responding officers, and
i.e. IV Foot Patrol?
IVFP and the fire department and the EMTs. They alleged that it was something to do with it was a racial basis.
How so?
They said that when they called, the woman who called said felt like she wasn't being taken seriously, and it was the police who showed up first, and the police according to these witnesses, came out of the car with what they said was a baton.
The sheriff, not the police.
This is the IV Foot Patrol.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Came out of the car with a baton and without an emergency kit, and restrained Sanchez, and were acting basically ignoring the witnesses' statements and acting in a way that seemed too calm and insensitive to the witnesses, and instead taking statements from a standby. It was a white male who was standing. It was also
wasn't
a
that
witness.
his roommate?
They didn't specify who it was, but they felt that was very disrespectful. And then there were allegations of that they didn't have a translator available and other things like that.
Oh, he only spoke Spanish?
No, so he spoke. It was apparently that was more of an after the fact
For the family, for his
communicating to the
family,
family. So then the next day we spoke to IV Foot Patrol, the Lieutenant Plastino, and he said that the police didn't come out with a baton. It was a flashlight, and it was never used.
Yeah, they really pushed back really hard.
They said it was absolutely not true. He said, I think is a quote. He said, "Oh, I'm so absolutely confident we did everything right in this."
And the response times were within
the normal. And he explained that sometimes in cases like this, the deputies end up coming first because they just end up being closer than medical response. And so it wasn't a case of they were like, oh, it's some sort of misconduct going when you send the deputies. It's just the deputies were closer, and then the medical team came after. But he did acknowledge that car didn't have a medical emergency response kit. But he also said that emergency response kits wouldn't be able to handle anything like this.
All right, I don't want to put you on the spot, so let me put you on the spot here a second.
Oh, perfect.
So, I mean, what's your take on this? I mean, do you think there was some racial aspect to the response by emergency response?
I have no idea. My gut would say that as an outsider, I'm not a minority. I've never had any relations with police other than professional on a professional basis, and I really couldn't tell you if it's a question of racism or if it's just a question of the fact of that's how policing works. You got to have a wall up, is what I hear when you're a police officer and you approach a scene. You have to be removed from the scene.
So has there been a protest or what's happening on campus?
There hasn't really been a protest. There's been there was the statements given at Senate, and then there was a vigil the following night.
Was the vigil? Was that sort of a protest / vigil or more?
It was.
Vigil?
They really focused mostly on celebrating Andy's life rather than turning it into a political move, which a lot of people I think appreciated, especially his friends and family. And there was a big appreciation for the articles that we did post because they feel like they're happy that it's getting attention like it did. I mean, this article about their allegations got thousands and thousands of views, almost 200 comments, more than anything else. And I think that's significant on its own, just because whether or not it's racism, I think that people are this ready to accept those allegations and to spread them and to take them as valid shows that there's a bit of a disconnect going on between the community and the Foot Patrol.
All right, good work. We'll have you back there because we're still waiting for the autopsy.
Still waiting on the autopsy. Yeah.
Toxicology.
Have you back.
Yeah.
All right, Ray. First of all, I think I misstated the name of your website.
Well, it's changing all the time.
You have a new website.
It's a new website called SantaBarbaraBusinessNews.com.
Okay,
and
my
it's strictly
apologies.
about the south coast of Santa Barbara County, what's happening here, not Lompoc, not Santa Maria, not Ventura. It's what's happening here because, South Coast has a unique economy. And being a business writer for so many years, I look around, I don't see the business coverage or economic coverage of this part of the world. And so I started this website, and I've been blogging a lot about State Street.
Well, on the old website.
Yeah.
And I assume you're going to still stand behind that story, even though it's on the other name. Yes. You painted a dismal, pretty dismal picture of what's happening to retail business. Tell us what's going on.
There's about 30,000 square feet of available commercial retail space on between the 600 and 1,000 blocks of State Street, and that's a lot. That's the most they've seen since 2011. That's like Ortega up to Anapamu.
Okay.
And there's more on Lower State Street too that wasn't mentioned in a press release I got from one of the commercial real estate companies here, and they're saying this is the worst since 2011. Now it's not the worst since 2008 when the recession was hit and there was dozens of empty spots all up and down State Street. State Street is not the only economic corridor in Santa Barbara. It is just the most visible one. And like vacancy rate through the rest of the South Coast is 2%. Which is nothing. I mean, so what's happening on State Street is that the triple net lease which is known as the triple net lease. It's what companies have to pay to get the rent, their services like trash removal, and utilities like electricity. And so these triple net leases have gone up to $4 a square foot at most places, maybe even more, maybe $5 a square foot, and as low as $2 a square foot. What does that mean? How many shoes do you have to sell to pay that kind of rent? I mean, think about it. You sell a bunch of shoes even for $50 a pair. You got to sell a lot to pay $30,000 for your triple net lease every month. And how much pizza do you have to sell? There are 23 pizza places up and down State Street, but they're doing really well.
And you've tried them all?
I've tried on a couple of them. But no,
23, wow.
Yeah,
23.
That's around. And some of the big restaurants like Cadario and Olio di Limoni, they have their own pizza places. Why are they selling pizza? I don't know. But there's
So is that a
lot,
$4, or compared not only to other places in Santa Barbara, but in LA or
it's
elsewhere?
a lot more than it used to be. But I think what people don't realize about State Street is that companies or individuals own huge building blocks. And if you're one little shop in there, and your rent goes up to $4 a square foot, and you started out at $3.50 or whatever, you're going to be hurt. You got to sell a lot more shoes, a lot more whatever you sell. The big chains aren't worried about like H&M and Marshalls because they'll get by. But there's very few mom and pop shops on State Street anymore. They're gone for the most part. There's a couple, but they're not going to be around. I think another big problem that's driving making a lot of empty shops is the panhandling. A lot of people just don't want to rent a place on State Street if they're going to have a bum out there trying to collect money from people every day. It's really bad. And I walk up and down State Street a lot, and I get hit up all the time, and it's just terrible.
Particularly in that
600 to 1,000 block. There's a lot of guys. Transients mostly, but there's some guys who are there every single day. I've known them for years, and people try to ignore them, but they're there, and it's pretty disgusting, really. I mean, I'm sorry.
Businesses are not happy about it.
No, they drive away business. Well, that and skateboarding. It's not really going to be in trouble because skateboarding is outlawed on State Street, but people do it anyway, and I've seen people get hit.
What is Saks doing? What's going on there?
They changed their business model. They used to be Saks Fifth Avenue. Well, they were selling like $100 bow ties or whatever. Now they're an outlet store called Off Fifth, and they just basically went from selling more expensive clothing to more things like you'd find at Forever 21 or H&M, things like that. They're still expensive though. The shoes and stuff they sell are I think women like them very much, but they're expensive.
All right. Well, thank you for that, and we'll have you back to talk to more about from the SantaBarbaraBusinessNews.com. Check it out, Ray's site. All right, that's all the time we have. A reminder, we're rearranging our schedule so we can come back right after the election with a special broadcast looking at all the results and what they mean, and check out Josh's predictions. So check our Facebook page, SB City Desk, for the schedule and the online link. And also check out City Desk Newsmakers, where my next guest will be Supervisor Salud Carbajal. So thanks tonight to Josh and Kelsey and Emile and Ray for coming, and thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time again on City Desk.